Great warm-up, everybody. So we've been working this week on takedowns. Tuesday, we looked at our basic double leg. The double leg is a really high percentage takedown, but we have to make sure we're using a lot of control when we're doing this, or else we can fall into some unfortunate traps like guillotines. We talked about the double leg, setting it up, and then two different finishing variations, a straight drive and then a leg lift. Tonight, we're going to look at the cousin of the double leg. That's going to be the single leg. The single leg is probably the highest percentage takedown in Jiu Jitsu, period. However, the single leg is a little bit more complicated than the double leg. Not by much, but there's just some more stuff that's happening when we're doing a single leg. So we're going to break down the single leg in great detail tonight. We're going to have a basic entry, and then, like we did before, two different finishes. Now, first things first, guys, let's talk about our main concept for takedowns. It's very similar to our main concept for sweeps, and that is I'm going to look to access levers on my opponent's body to get their hips to the mat. Okay, once I get their hips to the mat, of course, I want to control their hips and control the top position. Last class was the double leg. Tonight is the single leg. Now, specifically, we're doing what's called a sweep or a swing single. It's the same technique, just different names. A sweep single or swing single, whatever you want to call it. But we're going to start off the same grip setup as we did last class, okay? So I'm going to demonstrate our first setup and entry and finish for our single leg tonight. So we're going to be facing each other, same starting position. I'm going to tie up with a collar and sleeve grip. Okay, guys, from here, I'm going to demonstrate the whole thing slowly, and then we'll break it down. Here we go. So we're doing our basic sweep single here. Now, the reason this is a little bit more complicated for some people to get than the double leg is because this is not a linear movement. This is not a linear takedown. I'm moving my body 90 degrees when I perform this particular single leg variation. So what we're going to do is we're starting again with that same collar and sleeve position. I'm going to pummel my sleeve grip to an inside position, utilizing that inside bicep hook to get that lift on his elbow. So I'm changing this stiff arm frame into a lever by lifting it. Remember how we talked last class about how I should be able to turn my partner pretty effectively using this grip combination of the collar and the bicep. And this is going to be fairly important for this takedown. I should be able to pull and turn my partner like a giant steering wheel using this grip setup. So what I'm going to look to do is I'm going to look to move my body closer to the leg that's on the same side as the bicep hook. So whatever arm's hooking on the bicep here, I want to get my knee closer to that leg. So if that foot is not in front, I'm going to look to pull it in front. Now that I'm here, I start to lift his elbow as I take a slight step to the side, and now I want to get my knee right next to his foot, or maybe even a little bit behind it. So as I lift, I'm doing a similar shot motion like we did before, but instead of shooting with our right, we're going to step and drop with our left. Now notice when I drop, I want my knee right next to their foot. This is going to help keep our connection with our opponent. Notice my right hand stays on the collar. This is posture control. I don't want to let him posture and stand back up. We'll talk about what to do if this grip breaks in a moment. From here, as I swing into that position, notice how I'm still in my shot orientation where I have a driving leg. My head is up and rigid. My left hand will now hug his knee and grab my own bicep. From here, I'm going to keep the integrity of my spinal column and use my head like a battering ram. But notice how I'm in this sort of like T perpendicular position with my opponent. From here, I'm going to start to take a few steps into him. Don't just try to do this and try to lift his leg up. I want to, again, use my head like a battering ram to start driving his weight into the back foot, which in turn makes the front foot lighter. So again, from here, I'm going to drive off my back foot, and I'm going to take a couple steps, 2-3 steps into him. And come up here. Notice I'm pinching strong with my knees, and my head is driving in. Don't look down at the mat. If I look down at the mat, he now accesses the lever to my spine to break my posture and push my head down. So I always want to remind people, pretend like you're looking into their heart. So I'm going to take my forehead, place it on their chest, and look into their heart. I should be able to tell if he's a good person or not. Okay, so look, rigid spine, head straight, look in. Let's just work on the entry, and then once we get there, we're going to create a little bit of movement, and then we'll be ready to work on our finish after. So again, we'll rotate. We're going to start in our good low stance here, guys. Tying up, collar and sleeve, pummel to the inside position. As I lift, I take a slight side step. Remember, I'm going underneath the arm. So I lift, slight side step, and now my knee drops next to his foot as I swing. I want to be as close to that foot as possible. My head is driving in, and our bodies are like the letter T. My arm that's behind his knee comes up. No. Hi. My arm that's behind his knee comes up, and I grab my own bicep. I'm not letting go of that collar here, guys. Now look, I'm going to drive off my back foot and start running into him. I want you to take a few steps. Okay, we'll back up here. So again, my head is up. I'm looking into my partner, not down to the floor. I'm looking into my partner. Now, once I'm here, guys, I just want the person who has the single leg position, induce movement, 4 directions. Just move them around for a few seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is gonna help us create off-balancing opportunities, so that way our finishes are gonna be easier, okay? This also helps the other person learn how to balance. Let's look one more time. Okay, so from here, I pummel. I start to use that arm to lift, slight step, swing. Look, guys, head is up. I'm leaning into him. I'm gonna start to connect and drive. Pinch everything tight. And now just like 3 to 4 seconds, just move. 1, 2, and 3. All right, guys, just a quick note. At any time, when we're shooting for this sweep single, if our hand, for whatever reason, loses the collar grip, okay? So boom, I lose the collar grip. It's not the end of the world. We're just gonna connect to gable grip. However, always backhand over top the front hand. If I go vice versa, the first hand that he's gonna pull on, this arm is now useless to me. I can no longer connect. If he pulls on this hand, I can still control his leg, okay? So again, just a little side note there. Keep the collar if possible. This is one of the cool things with the gi, is that you can use the collar to keep posture control. So I'm gonna keep pulling down, but if for whatever reason I lose it, we're just gonna go gable grip, but backhand covers the bottom hand. I'll show one more time without talking. Here we go. And now just move them around a little bit. 1, 2, and 3. Any questions on our entry for the sweep single, Chris? If they kick the leg back? So I'm gonna just transition to something different, right? So if for whatever reason, I'm slow on the draw, again, I'm inducing him to move that leg forward if it's not already in front. So it's a timing thing, right? That foot's back, so I pull, and that takes me right there. So I should be setting the pace, right? I shouldn't go slow and give him an opportunity to move it. If for whatever reason I miss it, here, I can just come back up, okay? Or if I miss it, I can just continue in with like a double leg, and that starts to lead us into chain wrestling. But again, I'm forcing them to step so that way it becomes in range for me to grab. All right, guys, any other questions? Make sure that back hand, it's like I'm throwing a hook right behind their knee. Catch it right to your bicep. All right, anyone need to see it again? Let's go, 1, 2. Okay, so looking good. There's a couple little details I want to touch on, and that's going to be primarily focused on our posture, the integrity of our spinal column, and our drive, okay? So number 1, posture. As I perform this movement, I'm sweeping my leg. Takedowns and mics do not go well together. No. So I'm sweeping this leg behind me, or swinging this leg behind me, hence the name, sweep single or swing single. Again, your choice. So again, when I'm here, guys, as I lift, I take a slight side step, and I sweep that leg behind me. Now, if we rotate, if my body is leaning into him here, look how far away my hips are from his hips. Now, my posture is very broken. I no longer have a good perpendicular frame in order to hold his weight up. So I want to try to keep my weight and my back driving in, and my posture nice and perpendicular to the floor. Now that I'm here, remember what I said, it's not a deadlift. If I try to now go, that's hard, okay? I want to utilize movement to help me get the leg up. So I'm not just trying to lift this. I'm going to take my driving foot, which should be driving into him, right? So that way this force vector helps me push in. If my foot's here, I can't drive into him, so it's behind me. This is my engine. Look, I'm gonna start, remember, walking. Just take a few steps. Okay, that way I come up and I'm driving his weight into that back foot. Now that I have the leg though, I have two main options for finishing. Either get him onto his hands or put him onto his butt. First, we're gonna take them down towards their hands, meaning face to the floor. Now don't worry, we're not gonna face plant tonight. In this situation, my goal is to start to pull this collar straight down to the mat. To do this, I'm simply gonna do a slight side step with my right foot. So the foot that is in front of his body. I'm gonna slight side step and I'm just gonna start pulling his collar down. Notice if we rotate, I'm still holding on to the leg. I've pulled his head down to the mat, and now I'll get my 2 points for the takedown. We're gonna talk about establishing a passing position after. So right now, don't worry about like what your body looks like at the end. Just focus on getting him to the mat. Okay, just focus on getting your points. Okay, so again, option number one. I lift, I'll pull him back a little bit so we can see. So I'm here. So my leg that's in front of his body, this one, and again, I'm keeping a good pinch. This leg is gonna slightly step out. As I step out, I pull him down to the mat. If he braces, just drive. Always finish on top. Okay, once I'm in this position, guys, 3 seconds of control. Bottom person, if you wanna give a little bit of feedback, you know, a little bit of like struggle, try to get back up, that's cool, but just like 30%, okay? Don't go crazy. Again. Same starting position. I've already pummeled to the inside. Slight side step, sweep single, run up with it. Front leg, I step out, drag him to the floor, and drive. Keep your weight bearing into him. Again, don't worry about like, where should my legs be? Where should my hip? Just keep him on the ground for 3 seconds. That's all I want you to worry about. Okay, I'll show one more time without talking. All right, guys, so sweep single. Once you have them, pull them down towards their face. If they catch themselves, drive them over their posts. So if they're posting like this, drive them over their hands so they can no longer maintain their balance. 3 seconds, then switch. Any questions? Let's go, 1, 2. All right, guys, so we're just gonna go over one more finish now, getting our partner to the mat. We're systemizing the way that we wanna finish, right? So let's say I'm trying to go for that first option where I'm pulling their head to the mat. And the nice thing about that first finish is it doesn't really matter where their leg is, right? Sometimes when you're in single leg, they can try to pull their leg out to the outside of your body. Here, this is fine. Now I'm just gonna do like a steering wheel with both parts. Doesn't really matter. But let's say I'm going for that first option, and how are they gonna respond? They're probably gonna try to posture back really hard so they don't get pulled to the mat. So when they do, we're gonna go nice old school, run the pipe. Okay, same starting position. I sweep, come up into single leg. Now look here, guys. Maybe I'm trying to pull him down. He starts to fight that. So what I'm gonna do at this point is I'm gonna start to drive my shoulder into his hip as I start to chop him to his butt now. So whereas before we were trying to take him to his hands, now we're gonna take him to his butt. Now, I need to watch out for one thing, guillotine. I don't wanna do this and stick my head next to his hip, okay? Even if I keep my head bearing in here, as our momentum starts shifting towards the back, he can easily push my head and feed it. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna take my head and completely remove it from his body. Here. So notice how I'm actually completely separated. Now, as I separate, my shoulder goes to his hip as I chop him down to the mat. I wanna maintain that collar grip if possible, okay? That's gonna be very important for our connection into our passing position. Okay, so we're just running the pipe. Again, I'm here, pummel, swing, come up to your position. Again, I'm just kind of moving Coach Seth back to a position where you all can all see him. So look here, guys. I'm gonna start to take the shoulder that's in front. I wanna bring that to his hip. As I do this, my back foot now is gonna step. So before, our front foot was opening. Now, our back foot is gonna open. I don't necessarily wanna open completely perpendicular to him though. I'm gonna open back at a slight 45. Here. So I'm kind of scissoring my legs. This is gonna be safer on my knee. So again, my head comes off, my shoulder goes to his hip, and I drop that shoulder down into his hip. What am I doing? How does this actually work? I don't want to just think of this like I'm trying to swing him around in a circle and do this. If anyone is familiar with an exercise called a pistol squat, it's where you have one leg out. I cannot do it for the life of me, and you squat, right? We are forcing our opponent into a pistol squat while carrying our weight on their hip, okay? That's how I want you to think about this. It's not a strength battle. I'm not trying to overwhelm you. I'm trying to force you into a compromised position, and then I add my weight to your hip to force you into a pistol squat, okay? Pummel, sweep, run up into him. From here, my head comes out, my shoulder goes on. If your arm gets kind of caught, you can always just let go and cup their knee. Here, look, shoulder to their hip, chop them down. Don't fall, okay? Make sure that we're finishing in good base here. For those of you who are more like, wrestling based, you might be saying to yourself, that's a terrible run the pipe. I know, that's because we're doing a gi specific variation. If for whatever reason we end up here and we don't have the connection, we're gonna make sure that we block the back of their ankle first, okay? And now, same thing. I start to chop, and I'm gonna finish on top. Again, don't worry too much about like, where should my hips be at the end? We're gonna deal with that one more time at the end, okay? Once more from the front, slow motion. All right, you guys finishing on top. Any questions? So we're running the pipe, sit them to their butt. Good balance at the top. Maintain top position for a 3 count. All right, let's go. 1, 2. So similar to how we finished up with the double leg where we want to get our body away from the guard, I just want to make sure that we're also dealing with the guard in some way once we finish these takedowns too. Because we don't want to just throw our partner and then end up in a not great position. You might get 2 points, but now you might be in danger. So let's look at the first option where I pull his head to the floor. Guys, look at my posture, head up, back straight. Can't be here, okay? Walk, lift and control. So for our first option, we're gonna end in what we call a side smash position. There's a few different variations you can play with here. You can also go to leg weave, or if this leg's not even in between your legs, you can go to knee cut. But here's the general idea. When I pull him to the mat, I wanna keep his knees folded together. So let's do this, we'll turn this way. So I just made him hit the floor. So now I wanna keep his knees folded together. So I can either insert my leg in between. This is called a leg weave. It's basically a knee cut with his leg in the way. Or I can do a side smash where I just drop my hips to the floor like I'm basically sprawling on top of his legs. Here, windshield wipe, and I can walk to the back. If we do the option where his leg was not in, so maybe I came here, he extracted the leg, and I do like the steering wheel motion, now I can just come right into knee cut. So there's some variety here with this first option. I just want to make sure that I'm keeping his legs in control, either by smashing the legs together or staying in between, making sure I'm in a good passing position. Okay, so again, I'll show one more time. I'll finish with a leg weave. That's my preferred option. Nice and tight, okay? Hugging his hips so he can't move. And then your knee can go right in between. Again, if you're unfamiliar with leg weave, which is totally fine, just side smash. Smash his legs together. That way, his legs can no longer affect you. All right, second option, thankfully, there's really only one thing I want you to do. Headquarters. Headquarters. From here, chop. Immediately, my right leg is gonna step deep into his knee pit. I'm gonna hold the collar and squat on top of his shin. Now we're in our headquarters position. This is one of our primary passing positions in Jiu Jitsu. I'm shortening his levers so that way he's less effective. He can't create as much force because his legs are half the length. So I'm nice and low here. Have your partner try to get their feet back on you. You'll see that it's a very strong position. From here, obviously, lots of passes. Don't worry about the passes though. Just focus on the position. One more time for this option. So I'm squatting nice and low. Shin blocking his knee. Good knee elbow connection. Strong collar grip. Alrighty guys, So let's just play around now, feel some different options out, see what you like, but focus on, once you make them fall down, isolate and control their hips. Don't let them set up a guard. Let's go, 1, 2.